This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everyone. It's Susanna, and welcome to the March LAT networking call. I am really thrilled to have Esther Lynn from the Farm Service Agency joining us today to talk about several programs that many of you have indicated you'd like to learn more about, specifically CRP TIP and FSA in general. So I'm going to share my screen right now in order to run through a few housekeeping items, some agenda items from AFT's end before handing it over to Esther, who's going to give the presentation today. Alrighty, so I hope everyone's doing all right amidst everything that's going on, and I'm grateful that we all can still meet remotely, and I just hope everyone is adjusting all right to pretty immense shift into teleworking this month. So today, like I said, for the 2020 LAT networking calls, we're shifting to bi-monthly meetings where we will have topics, and many of you all, the LATs, have generously volunteered to kind of present or report out on certain topics that you are either working on or you'd like to learn more about. So there is a official 2020 LAT networking call schedule on Podio. I'm going to share that link in a sec. But today I thought we'd kick things off by having a guest presenter, Esther Lynn from FSA, and I'm going to introduce her in a moment. But as we know, and maybe actually for you, Esther, this is helpful information. August of this year, we're going to wrap up a 4-year EET, USDA Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program grant. I also want to thank the tremendous support from Farm Credit Contributions, their program there, a national advisory team for the educational enhancement grant through BFRDP that we received, as well as members of American Farmland Trust. So this is what we'll be covering today in the next hour. I have muted everyone just because I am recording this call and I want the sound quality to be as good as possible. So you will be muted while I'm speaking or while Esther's speaking. And once we will have a Q&A section at the end where Esther would very much appreciate your thoughts and comments. And so I believe we determined we will just allow you to unmute yourselves and speak up popcorn style, and hopefully that won't be too chaotic and we will be able to wrap up by 4:30. Okay, so in the agenda I sent out, here just are some probably very familiar friendly reminders at this point, namely that your MOU expired at the end of last year. So if you have any 2020 LAT trainings, you will need to sign and send this MOU extension back to me. In the Podio folder for this month's networking call is the agenda and also this PowerPoint, these slides, so you can access the links there. Multiple places, I guess. If you do have any 2020 LAT trainings planned, however, as I'm reading that out loud, I'm realizing they might, well, actually, Kevin, I know you're on the line. You've done some like webinars types thing, which is very much what we have to be doing right now. So maybe your trainings your plans will continue, but please reach out to Megan for any outreach support. And similarly to your BFR trainings, you will need to provide both two types of evaluations, both the participants and your LAT workshop evaluation as the trainer. And then we really appreciate when you have uploaded your materials to Podio in the shared materials folder. So please continue to do that, especially if you if you have a from 2017 on, if you have some training materials that you haven't uploaded, you can upload them at any time. And then lastly, even though we all are out of the office, please remember your regional AFT office to support promotion of any LAT trainings upcoming in this year. They would love to hear from you and provide kind of outreach and promotional support. Lastly, so more on Podio. As you know, a simplified workspace for attendees of your Train the Trainer trainings went live in September. So what I've found is the best kind of procedure is if you can send me a list, a contact list of attendees. A lot of you have liked to sent it to me before your training once you have a finalized roster. So then folks can actually access Podio before your training. I think that has proven the most effective. And then there is kind of instructions on the activity homepage of this new workspace on Podio for your user's reference and probably also for your reference. And then lastly, there is a full 2020 LAT networking call schedule that can be found on Podio in the networking calls folder there. Okay, so I am super excited that Esther can join us today. Many of you I know are familiar with her work. She is part of the Department of Ag's Farm Service Agency Outreach Office, which oversees FSA's strategic engagement of farmers and ranchers. Her work includes developing tools and resources that help field employees reach new audiences and building partnerships across federal, state, and community partners to ensure equal access to USD programs. So I am going to stop talking now because I'm going to continue to share my screen with you all since I have Esther's slides. But Esther, I'm going to actually mute myself just to help with sound. But if you are ready to go, we're ready for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Susanna. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, so as Susanna mentioned, my name is Esther Lynn. I am an outreach specialist here with the Farm Service Agency. Our outreach office really oversees and is responsible for the strategic engagement of strategic oversight, of outreach across the Farm Service Agency, really supporting our staff across the country and making sure that they have the tools and resources that they need to engage producers and ensure that producers have equal access to our programs. The reason that you're seeing me here talking is just because our program manager for this particular program, John Carter, unfortunately couldn't be here. He sends his regrets. He is the real expert in this program. I know just enough to be dangerous, so I'll do my best to talk a little bit about how the Conservation Reserve Program Transition Incentives Program works. And if you all have any other follow-up questions that I might not be able to answer, we will be sure to follow up today. And then I also want to mention a couple colleagues who join me in this work, specifically my colleague Cynthia Cuellar, who is an outreach specialist with FSA, who works specifically on our conservation reserve programs and their related outreach, as well as Sarah Campbell, who is USDA's Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coordinator. She is new on board, although not new to USDA, and she has been really engaged in this space and will be moving forward as well. So our plan for today, I'll just talk over the next 20 minutes or so. I'll give a quick brief background on TIP. We'll talk through how it works, some definitions because we love our terms in FSA. We'll talk through some of the changes in the 2018 Farm Bill that affect TIP. And then we'll move to some discussion time. We're trying to reserve as much time as possible for that because we know that you all are the experts You all have been in this space much longer than we have, and we want to hear from you and benefit from your experience and your stories. So we're going to reserve some time at the end for listening and for talking a little bit about any input you might have for us and how we might be able to improve our outreach to producers on this specific program. And with that, I will invite you all to ask questions over the course of the presentation. I find that that makes it much more interactive. So Susanna, I don't know if it makes the most sense. I apologize, I don't remember what we discussed at the front end, whether or not you want people to put it into chat or just unmute themselves and ask, but I don't mind being interrupted if you have a question related to a slide. I don't mind clarifying if you want to stop and raise your hand and ask a question.
Yeah, Esther, I think I haven't mentioned the chat box. I think just having a single track, if you don't mind being interrupted, I think folks, if you just want to unmute yourself and ask and interrupt Esther kindly and then ask her way, I think that would
absolutely. I think that'll make this presentation much more interesting and maybe make it a little bit more interactive. Okay. All right, so the Transition Incentives Program. You know, I will say that, you know, FSA, we have a lot of programs that are really geared towards helping farmers and ranchers get their start and grow their business in agriculture. But the Transition Incentives Program is probably one of our only programs that directly targets one of the biggest challenges that we know farmers and ranchers face today, new farmers and ranchers face today, which is access to land. And so I think that makes it a particularly special program that we have in our portfolio. It's tied to the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. Are folks generally familiar with CRP? I'll just give a quick background on it. Essentially, CRP is a program where FSA pays landowners and operators, or we'll just call them CRP participants, to keep land out of ag production and to instead implement conservation practices on the land. And so we have a contract with the CRP participants to conserve land for a certain number of years, oftentimes it's 10 to 15 years. And when that contract expires, we then provide incentives for that CRP participant to transfer that land to the next generation. For TIP, we are specifically targeting transfer of land to beginning farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, and military veteran farmers and ranchers, and we'll talk about the definitions of those terms in a little bit. So just a little bit of background, TIP was authorized in the 2008 Farm Bill with a significant investment of funding from Congress. And we've been really pleased that in every subsequent Farm Bill, we've received additional funding to administer the program. And with each subsequent Farm Bill, we've also added additional flexibilities for participation in this program. So in 2014, we were able to add military veterans as producers who are eligible to receive transferred land. And then in 2018, we had additional flexibilities around leasing agreements and things like that, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of slides. So how TIP works. I mentioned earlier that it is tied to CRP, and the connection is that only land that is expiring CRP land is eligible for this program. So say a producer has a 10-year contract with FSA to keep land out of ag production. In year 8, they can begin to enter into an agreement to sell or lease land to a beginning farmer, a military veteran, or a socially disadvantaged producer, of which that agreement would kind of take effect in year 10 of that contract. And then in return, landowners or operators who are participating in CRP then receive additional CRP payments from FSA. So they are then eligible to receive up to 2 more annual payments from FSA. So, you know, if they have a 10-year contract, they're receiving annual payments every year for those 10 years, they would then be eligible to receive an extra 2 years. And then for the producer who would be coming onto the land, that farmer is then able, starting in year 8, to begin preparing the land for ag production. That land is oftentimes just there's no active work on that land other than just cover, and so then producers can start working on getting that land ready to start farming in year 10. We get a lot of questions about whether or not CRP participants can transfer land to family members and still participate in this program and receive those payments. And the answer to that is no. I'll talk a little bit later about, in just a couple slides, about who is actually considered a family member. But Congress did not give us the authority to open up this program to transfers that are happening kind of within families. Any questions about the general kind of mechanics of the program? Okay. Just some quick definitions. Excuse me, I mentioned beginning farmers earlier. For us at USDA, that generally means a producer who has been farming for 10 years or less. When we talk about military veteran producers, that is a definition that is established in the Farm Bill by Congress for USDA. And so we mean a producer who served in the armed forces and either is a beginning farmer, hasn't farmed for more than 10 years, or has obtained status as a military veteran in the last 10 years. And then when I say socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher, that is another definition that's established by Congress. And what we mean is a producer, an individual who is a member of a racial or ethnic group who's experienced discrimination in the past. And because of that is entitled to certain incentives and preferences within our programs. Sometimes for some of our programs, gender, so women would be included in that socially disadvantaged farmer and rancher definition. For this particular program, women are not considered socially disadvantaged in the socially disadvantaged category. And then for family members, I'm not going to read through this entire list. It's quite long, but generally it's somebody who is kind of like in an immediate family circle. So, parents, children, grandparents, that kind of a thing. Any questions about that? Okay. So the 2018 Farm Bill, which went into effect, was signed into law last December, gave us some additional flexibilities with regard to this program. In the past, only CRP participants who self-certified that they were either retired or getting ready to retire were eligible to participate in this program and transfer their land to a new farmer and receive additional payments. In the 2018 Farm Bill, Congress removed that retired or retiring language, which really means now that we have an additional kind of increase of eligible land that can be considered, for this program. So that's really great news. Another flexibility that we got with the 2018 Farm Bill was allowing producers who are receiving that transfer land, coming onto that transfer land, to start prepping the land earlier. So in the past, they could only prep in year 9 of a CRP participant's contract, so the last year before the land expires and transfers. Now they are able to start 2 years before, so in year 8, because our contracts are typically 10 years. Which just provides additional flexibility, particularly to organic producers who have to meet additional requirements under the certification process. Some other changes. So in the old Farm Bill, the requirement was that when a CRP participant is entering into an agreement with another producer under TIP, that they either lease the land for 5 years or sell the land. And so under this 2018 Farm Bill, we now offer the flexibility of having leases for less than 5 years, with the caveat that those leases must provide the new producer the option to purchase. And then just mentioning this again, because we do get this question a lot, family members still remain ineligible for enrollment in the TIP program. Many of our programs have deadlines and sign-up periods. The nice thing about TIP, we recognize it's a really important program to be able to offer access to land for producers. And so we do not have a deadline for this program. Enrollment is on a continuous basis. So any producer who has an agreement with a CRP participant can walk into any of our service centers at any time of the year to enroll in this program, as long as that CRP participant is in the last 2 years of their contract with FSA. Additionally, once a new farmer comes onto that land, we want to make sure that they know that they're eligible for a whole host of programs as well. So when they come onto the land, we want to work with them and make sure that they have a conservation plan with NRCS. They are eligible to with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, one of our sister agencies. And we want to make sure that they know that they're eligible to participate in a number of natural resources conservation programs, as well as our suite of FSA programs. So, we do talk about the Conservation Stewardship Program as well as the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP. And that is the general background and introduction to TIP. I will go ahead and open up to questions. I just went ahead and added a couple of questions to kind of get people's thoughts going on things. But I'll just pause here in case there's any questions on the program in general that I can answer.
It looks like there's one in the chat box from somebody.
Okay.
From Dan. Is there an increase in TIP applications since the passage of the 2018 bill? And does there seem to be any correlation with any of the new changes?
I don't know whether or not I don't know that there have been any kind of increases in program participation as a result of the 2018 Farm Bill changes. Although I will say that, a lot of what we've seen on our end, what really moves program participation is really outreach on this program. We offer this in all of our states where there is expiring CRP land, and we do see pockets across the country of states that have high demand for TIP, and then in other states we have a little bit of less popular participation in TIP, and we have seen when we increase our outreach on this program, we really see that drives program participation numbers. Especially, and I will also say, we are in month 3 of the new Farm Bill. And so we are hopeful, and we will be tracking to see if we do get increased program participation as a result of the new flexibilities. Any other questions related to the program at all?
I'm curious if you have if a beginning farmer heard about this program and they wanted to participate, they wanted to find conservation land or CRP land, practically, how would you direct them to do that?
Yeah, I will be honest with you all. I think that is one of the challenges that we have with this program, is it relies on kind of an existing relationship between a CRP program participant and another producer who's interested in coming onto the land, whether that's them finding each other organically or through another organization. In the past, we had an almost kind of Craigslist type of online site that we hosted at FSA, but that site just wasn't very popular and wasn't really used very much. And so that is actually one of the things that I wanted to come to you all to talk about. We do really rely on the partnership that we have with organizations, with stakeholders, partners like you all, to talk about this program. And we see the most success with these landowner and new farmer connections and relationships additionally when there's supportive resources and organizations coming alongside them, right? So providing training around what good lease agreements look like and things like that, helping with succession planning. So that is one of the existing challenges that we have with this program, is that actual matching process.
This is Kevin Athern. So there is no list or map available of land that's enrolled in Conservation Reserve Program?
You know, I'm not sure if we are able to offer that. I don't know if my other colleagues on the line would be able to speak to that. Sarah, Cynthia, do either of you know whether or not we can offer kind of a heat map of sorts of available CRP land?
And I guess I did have, if we
I'm
don't get
not
an
sure.
answer to that.
Yeah, we'll
I
have
just,
to look into that, Kevin. Yeah.
okay, I also just want to make sure I understand, trying to get a better handle on the incentives for the beginning or socially disadvantaged farmer. At least in a direct sense, it sounds like the direct incentive is to the landowner who's selling, who would get two additional years of the CRP payment.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any, or how else, are there really any other incentives, or how else would you describe the incentives or the advantages to beginning farmers of going through this program?
Yeah, so the incentive here is really for the landowner to encourage transfer of land. And then for the beginning farmer, it's access to land going through this program. That is the main incentive for them, is being able to receive land coming out of CRP from an expiring CRP contract and be able to farm that land.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say this program is really geared towards incentivizing, you know, current farmers and ranchers or current existing landowners to transfer land to the next generation and make that land available to new farmers to farm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just thinking along the lines, it doesn't really, I mean, like with an easement program, the idea would be that the landowner is compensated a certain amount and would therefore be willing to transfer the land at a substantially lower than market value to make it more accessible to the beginning farmer. And so maybe this works similarly, except maybe not as, I'm not sure how much the typical conservation reserve payments are, but it doesn't really necessarily affect the value of the purchase price or the lease to buy price or anything like that, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Kevin. It doesn't really affect that. What this really targets is the availability of land, farmland, for new farmers. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I will say, you know, we do also want to, like, when we work with new farmers, we also do try and talk about our other portfolio of programs and resources that we have available for new farmers, like access to credit, disaster assistance programs, risk management programs. But specifically when we're talking about TIP, what we are incentivizing is people who participate in our programs currently and who are currently landowners or farmers and ranchers to make that land available.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Esther.
Mm-hmm. Susanna, does it make sense for us to go through some of these discussion questions?
Yes.
Should we go ahead and do that? Okay.
Yeah. I believe Sarah Campbell might have wanted to add something to your question. So it looks like just for efficiency, I'm gonna unmute everyone for a sec so Sarah can speak. if she wants to. But then yes, let's go through the discussion questions
Great.
one by one.
Thanks. I was just gonna pipe in when the question was asked about a distribution list. And I think Esther and I will have to do a little digging on this, but for, I would imagine, PII reasons, so confidentiality about program participants, we would probably be limited in the data that we could release, but we likely may be able to share general program participation data,
Yeah.
probably not provide specific information, or if there's only like one person in a county who's participating in the program, we just may have to mask some of that data or aggregate it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sarah.
But we can confirm that too.
Thanks. So, if folks have other questions about the program that we can try and answer, go ahead and ask those over the next few minutes. But we thought it might be helpful for us to just go through some discussion questions. We recognize that you all have been working in this space for longer than we have, and you all are the true experts who work with producers and landowners every day. So we wanted to do a little bit of listening on our part, just to understand, some of the challenges that you're facing, some of the stories that you hear on the ground. If you have heard of, instances of producers trying to participate in TIP, what worked, what didn't work, that kind of a thing. We just wanted to make space available for that. So with that being said, I'll just start with the last question, because I think Kevin or somebody else may have, or Rachel may have kind of picked up on this. And we wanted to come to you all to get your ideas. One of the, admitted challenges that we have with this program when it comes to outreach is helping landowners or CRP program participants and new farmers make successful connections. There is, like Sarah said, there are some challenges related to producer confidentiality and releasing information. And FSA is also not able to really kind of get into that area of matchmaking between CRP participants and potential new farmers. And so, we've been thinking through on our end what it looks like to really try and help make those good connections with producers, between participants within our existing capabilities. And so if you all have any ideas around that, we would welcome any feedback.
I actually was wondering, Sarah, is this a potential for the new state BFR coordinators that are coming in and should be released soon? Could this be a way for them to provide support services within their states?
Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yes, I think that this program is a really unique opportunity, and I mean, my experience in the field is that often landowners or beginning farmers who are seeking to be connected with, basically the other, a landowner or a prospective beginning farmer would often reach out to USDA staff. So it's helpful for us to be able to make a referral to not directly as USDA employees be like linking beginning farmers and landowners, but in states where there are land link organizations or stakeholders, there's definitely a really great opportunity for partnership there. And also just for the state coordinators to do general outreach on CRP TIP. A lot of them are actually program staff, and so they are interacting with producers pretty regularly. So it's a program that when someone's coming in and, getting help with their local office on, they can learn about maybe while they're there as well. So there's a lot of great outreach opportunities on it. And then opportunities for partnership with organizations who could do more of that linking and that coaching.
Yeah, Esther, I think that in terms of your like specific FSA outreach questions, that seems to hit the nail on the head for me. Like if either the state BFR coordinators combined with FSA could be providing outreach on CRP tips specifically. I'm in particular thinking, to land linking programs, but also land trusts or other land holding entities. I think that would be a really helpful outreach project.
Yeah, and making our staff aware of the available land linking organizations in their state or region.
Yes. Yeah. Have a two-way conversation. Yep.
Yeah, that is, I think that is the most feasible path forward for us as we think about how to make these successful connections, is to have a land linking organization or other partner organization kind of serve as an intermediary there. But if any other folks have other ideas, we'd welcome that. And then another question that we thought we'd pose to the group was, wanting to hear the kinds of challenges you all might encounter while working with landowners and new farmers.
I will say, kind of hearkening to Kevin's remark earlier about affordability, that financially incentivizing the landowner is surely a part of it, but just the price of land is what prevents a lot of the beginning farmers I know from accessing it, which I know there are good FSA resources for loans, but just I don't know that I have a specific idea, but any way that there can be financial incentives to the beginning farmer, obviously that helps to lower the costs to them.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking about the relationship between land trusts and easements and outreach for this program too.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Suzanne? Was that a question? I missed that.
No, it's not a question. It's 4:00 and I'm tired and my brain is just like thinking a little bit, but about how easements provided by land trusts are a way. I'm finding a lot more land trusts coming to me and asking to help find beginning farmers who want to continue agriculture on agricultural easement land. And that's, I think, a point of potential outreach. Because for me, they're often the link to landowners. If it's not within my own internal network.
Sure. Absolutely.
Hey all, this is Dan from the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, and I'm guessing that some of this is already out there, but I was just kind of thinking as far as, maybe if there was an opportunity to kind of demonstrate through like some anonymized case studies of folks that are taking advantage of kind of the suite of those opportunities in the portfolio. I know some folks here in Colorado that have certainly used the organic cost share program when they've been transitioning out of CRP, because that's just, it's usually pretty straightforward because things haven't been sprayed and such.
Mhm.
But I wonder if there were some case studies available for like a beginning farmer rancher or socially disadvantaged farmer rancher, if they could say, even down to some actual numbers and figures of they accessed this equip grant, they accessed this beginning farmer loan, they used TIP, they went through that organic cost share, or some of the other things that, like you mentioned, there are so many opportunities within the portfolio, but I wonder if there's actually some good actual kind of case studies where somebody can actually access that data.
Yeah, that's such a great idea, Dan. We do share success stories, at USDA, and we talk about, the types of programs that producers may have taken advantage of, but we don't often go into kind of the nitty-gritty and showing the numbers, and also showing how our programs can be stacked and layered. And I know that that's something that, is kind of high on Sarah's priority list as well, and making sure that we communicate and kind of pave the way for farmers, showing them how to do that. Sarah, do you want to talk about that at all? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Yeah, that's a really kind of an interesting thought. I think I'd have to think a little bit more about that and look at kind of what we have, but
And if I could just echo Dan.
Sorry,
Oh,
but to your point, Dan, about the stacking and layering, I think we can certainly do a better job of, I think, showing producers how to take advantage of the full portfolio of our programs.
yeah, definitely. And that will be a part of some of the training of these state coordinators, I think. And part of the new outreach is looking at how do we think about solutions more holistically. And, if somebody comes in asking about a particular program, what other types of recommendations should we be thinking about? Or as they're describing their operation, what kind of other triggers are there that we should start thinking about layering? We've talked a lot about layering of programs and sort of emphasizing more discussion about that for employees and for our customers as they come in and are thinking about how do we kind of market that or make sure folks are aware.
yeah, because Esther and Sarah, what Dan is saying makes sense to me, in that it will, with that type of BFR outreach, especially about specifics within case studies and stories. My hope is that could strengthen what I see maybe as the weakest link, not to use mean words, but just that, that the CRP tip, it's the only access or entry point for beginners is through land that's already held in CRP. So yeah, we just open that door a little bit wider for BFRs to know what these programs are, and again, how they can overlap or be layered. But yeah, I'm just thinking about access or entry points for BFRs, especially a program that's just geared intentionally so towards the land holding entities.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, no, I think there's maybe 4 things I'm hearing here. One that we know for ourselves as an agency is better outreach to existing landowners, to talk about TIP as an option because it is a program that is underutilized. And then 2, better outreach to beginning farmers, like you said, on this program, Although I will note that, when we did have kind of that like Craigslist type site online, it was decommissioned last month, actually, because of lack of use. Most of the inquiries were from the beginning farmer side, expressing interest in this program. And the challenge was actual available landowners to connect them with, or landowners who were interested in making that kind of like online connection through that site. And then I'm also hearing, or we also know, challenge with connecting landowners and beginning farmers. And then I think one of the last ones I'm hearing is showing the benefit to beginning farmers or ranchers, or thinking through what other benefits we can offer. Because, availability of farmland isn't the only challenge. Rachel talked about access or affordability and, other factors as well. So. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, well, thank you. Really appreciate y'all's time.
All right. I'm going to close out from the slide deck. Yeah, and begin to wrap things up. But if anyone has any final questions, please just unmute yourself now to ask whomever is on the call. I will be sending some follow-up information from Esther's slides, and so if it's all right with you, Esther, I would love to share your contact information. And actually, Sarah, I would love to get if you could email me your full kind of signature now. I would love to get as much information from you, since I think you'll be hearing from all of us regularly.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Great. But are there any final questions before we wrap things up today?
I think Sarah may have shared her contact information in the chat for everybody.
Yeah. Yep, her email is now in the chat. I think we've covered all chat questions, and if no one else has anything to say, I don't want to keep everyone. I know it's a busy and crazy time. So again, thank you so much, Esther. I really find it helpful to hear on these programs over and over, because they do subtly change and shift, and it's important that we keep up with those changes. So I think that's it for now.
Thank you to you all too. I think this is obviously an opportunity for us to come to you all and talk about our program and ask for assistance in telling other people about the program, but it's also an opportunity for us to hear about what could be better, and your thoughts on, other things that we could be trying. And, we really appreciate that feedback.
And Rachel also just said she really appreciates your efforts to listen and seek input. And it's just really exciting to hear, that you want partnership engagement to get these programs more effectively used. Yeah.
And Susanna, can I just make one last kind of like closing pitch is, for you all, I know that you're all based across the country, and if you don't already know, Farm Service Agency, our state offices have a state outreach coordinator in every state, who is, tasked with doing precisely this work, is connecting with producers and sometimes providing that extra hand-holding that some of our new customers may need, talking about our programs, working with our stakeholders. And so if you aren't already linked up with with your state's state outreach coordinator, or you aren't already linked up with somebody in FSA in your state, please reach out to us. We would love to connect you so that you're building those local relationships that might actually, make a difference when it comes to program participation for some of these programs and resources that we have for producers.
Great. Yes, I will be in my follow-up email to everyone that was on and the whole on the call today, and also to the LIT network. I'll be sending Esther's and Sarah's contact information and a recording of this go-to meeting, so you all have it in your back pocket, because I kind of anticipate there might be follow-up questions later on that you can direct to myself or Esther or Sarah or your state FSA coordinator, et cetera. I want you to make sure that you can know who to follow up with. Okay, I think that's all for now. Thanks again to everyone who joined us live, and I hope this is helpful for folks that listen to the recording later on. And best of luck the next couple weeks and months, and we will be back on for our next LAT networking call in May. And Rachel will be taking the lead on that. So Rachel, you'll be hearing from me soon. So thanks everyone. Take great care, and we will be back in touch soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.